With only 1 day left until the planned nationwide hunger protest, Nigerians remain divided on the issue, as some support the demonstration while others express opposition. Young Nigerians are expressing widespread discontent with the current administration's policies and are set to take to the streets from tomorrow. This has elicited mixed reactions from influential voices and the general public.
Now, in an effort to prevent potential disruption, the government has urged organizers to reconsider their decision to proceed with the protest. As tensions rise, Nigerians anxiously await the outcome of the 10-day protest. And, of course, looking forward to seeing how things turn out. Joining us is Nigerian politician and human rights activist, convener of the Revolution Now movement, Omoyele Sowore. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for bringing me this one.
All right. You've been an active member of, the civil society for a long, long time. You've participated in many protests, even some of them that, were seemingly, violent. Well, you were attacked. So I want your thoughts on when the government says, the protest should not hold because of the fears that it will be invaded by thugs and people would hijack the protest to commit anarchy on the Nigerian state. Is this a genuine concern that the Nigerian police and the Nigerian government should have in order to discourage protesters?
No, it is a very well recognized internationally known right that people have, that obligation to their conscience to object to whatever is wrong in their society. And that is what protests are about. And that is why protest has been used as a tool to effect change by social, political, and economic change agents around the world. The people that are referred to as thugs are actually not thugs. They are relatives, friends, cronies, and associates of those in government. That is why it is so easy to mobilize them on election days. On protest days, because they are hoodlums during protests, and they are thugs during elections to help them rig elections. So it is wrong and unacceptable for us to continue to carry on with the narrative that because of people that government has weaponized and empowered and armed, equipped to kill, destroy, and distract people with, the people should not exist anymore. We might as well just rename our country Federal Republic of Thugs, because it seems that thugs who are in limited number are more important than 200 million Nigerians. That is what the government is telling you. But we understand that this has been a gimmick that has been around for ages in trying to discourage and intimidate people whenever they want to exercise their fundamental rights to protest against unpopular government policies, yes.
Part of the complaints and the criticism that have been leveled against the administration is that they have had enough time to address Nigerians, enough time to, for the president to speak. So talk to us about the body language of the president, and is there anything that the presidency could have done differently to avoid or prevent this protest from happening?
When NSAS took place, the protests had already commenced before there were demands. Some demands, there was one demand which was to erase SARS. But in this case, this protest or revolt, as it is, the government is understanding it to be, is such that the demands had been presented several weeks ago in advance to the government. In fact, if you watch the timelines of some of the government handles or their official people like Bayo Nonuga, they have been addressing the demands on their own. They're saying this one is possible. All of it to them is impossible. So they're aware of it, but the goal is not to fix Nigeria. It's not to address these fundamental demands that are existential in nature. Their goal is to assert that nobody in this country has a right to complain whenever they take unpopular decisions. And that is why their body language has been to mobilize the military, to mobilize the police, and to mobilize thugs to bribe and cajole, and in some cases coerce people to detain and arrest people as they've done in Sokoto, Kano, Kaduna. And last night, the Abuja police went and raided a printer, and took away their computers. What's their crime? They claim that they are printing protest banners and posters and placards. So does that look like a government that's interested in addressing public grievance? No, they're not. Because honestly, they have nothing to offer.
Yeah. All right. I also want you to quickly speak on some of the demands from the protest. I saw, that you also shared this on your X or Twitter page. Some of the demands for the Days of Rage protest. One of them, of course, says scrap the 1999 Constitution and replace it with a people-made Constitution for the Federal Republic of Nigeria, toss the Senate arm of the Nigerian legislative system, and keep the House of Representatives, pay Nigerian workers minimum wage not less than 250,000, invest heavily in education. It also says release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and other things, end banditry, restructuring Nigeria to accommodate Nigeria's diversity, and a couple other things. Do you think these things are achievable, with a 10-day protest? Do you think the Nigerian government, some of them that you've mentioned, here, or that are mentioned here, like releasing Nnamdi Kanu and, the constitution that you're asking that it should be scrapped and replaced, are these things achievable with a 10-day protest? Or is the protest really just to make a point to the Nigerian government?
They're achievable in hours if the government is really interested in resolving these issues. Let me, bring your minds to when the president wanted to approve the minimum wage, the one that we are opposed to, which is the 70,000 naira minimum wage that can buy a bag of rice. It took them just a few hours to get the rubber stamp Senate and House of Rep to approve it. When he wanted to extend the tenure of the Inspector General of Police by 4 years, it took them just a few hours. When they wanted to buy a private jet for $100 million, it took them just a few days before. I'm sure negotiation might have been on, but without making it so complex for people who are listening to you, we always make it sound like it's impossible for things to get done in Nigeria whenever it favors the public. But whenever it wants to favor the political class, it doesn't take time. It doesn't take time to get anything that they want. It doesn't take them time for them to loot. It doesn't take time for them to destroy. It doesn't take time for them to oppress and suppress Nigerian people. It doesn't take time for them to kill the people of Nigeria. But when Nigerians demand for things that are existential in nature, that enhances their dignity and well-being, we are always arguing if it is possible. But we live in a country where it is possible for somebody to have everything, and it's impossible for a majority to have just a little. That is where the problem is with these arguments that we're making. South Africa had apartheid until 1994. They had the different constitution for the period or duration of apartheid, which was almost, which was more than a century, almost long. But when they wanted to end apartheid, it took them a few weeks to put in place an interim constitution and transition to a black majority rule in South Africa. So the same thing with Kenya, even last week. Everything that the government said was impossible before the protests started was possible in a matter of days. So they are going to be humbled by the people because it is the people now that are exercising their power and authority.
Just to add to that, the one that you posted, right, that is tagged Days of Raid Protest, End Bad Governance in Nigeria for the Days of Raid Revolt, and the list of demands, there's about 15 of them, identical diaspora voting. There's a different one, which we shared on our screen just a few minutes ago, that has 10 demands. Does this mean that, exactly this one, does this mean that the demands are varying amongst different sectors of the protest, or different, parts of the protest. You have one that has 15 demands. This one has 10 demands. This one doesn't mention Nnamdi Kanu. This one says, release NSAS protesters that are still in detention. Yours mentions release Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. Isn't that already showing, an issue here?
There's no issue at all. There are a lot of people who have aggrieved across Nigeria. And some of the demands you must have come across are even tailored to their local needs. Some of them are interested in demands that will make their life better in the states and their local governments. So there's nothing. Our one is the global demand. A lot of people don't even understand what it means for the diaspora to vote. So, but because we have a deep understanding of what will solve the problem affecting Nigeria, that is why we are not presenting a list of demands that are limited in nature. But that doesn't mean that the demands you have read, which came from another group, are not legit. It just shows to you that a lot of people are in a hurry to get a lot of things resolved. But you also have found some common demands across board, like reversal of the petroleum subsidy removal. Our one says corruption-free because they can return it and continue the corruption and the binging on the national treasury that they do with it, which is corrupt regime of subsidy, which has been the problem that they admitted is that their friends, cronies, and their associates just robbing with this. But it is the duty of government to clean that corruption. And what basically we are saying, and you have seen, is that Nigerians across board, north, south, and in the middle, on the sides, they're all tired. They want to leave, and they want a solution to their problems. And they're saying to those who are in government, if you cannot ship up, you ship out.
And what do you say to those who argue that whilst they recognize the right to protest, and while the Constitution recognizes the right to protest, there are also limitations to that right, where there is a fear of, in fact, I'm going to quote Section 45 that says, nothing in Section 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41 of this Constitution shall invalidate any law that is reasonably justifiable in a democratic society, A, in the interest of defense, public safety, public order, public morality, or public health, or B, for the purpose of protecting the rights and freedom of other persons. And part of the argument would be that when one person's right begins, another person's right, or when one person's right ends, another person's right begins. So what would you say to those who argue that, yes, the right to protest is guaranteed, but that the guidelines should be strictly implemented to ensure that the rights of others, like businessmen and those who have to move freely every day, is not in any way inhibited?
That is the reason we want to scrap that 1999 Constitution. It's so limiting of our ability to freely express ourselves. It's destroying the ability of Nigerian people to achieve their potential. So you are reading the Constitution that we have already told you should be scrapped. But even if you want to believe in the 1999 Constitution, which was written by the military guys, because that's how they think, you should also understand that these protesters at this time, and that has always been the case, has always made it clear to government that they are not involved. This is non-violence. They're not engaging and involving in violence. You and I know, media people, that it is government that's always, all the time, 100% engaged in violence. They're the ones who are now mobilizing people in Lagos to attack protesters across board. They're the ones who have gone to mobilize traditional worshippers, the Oro worshippers who are roaming the streets of Lagos, those elders who sold the future of young people in this country. The elders that Wole Soyinka used to say is wasted generation, who didn't fight for themselves, didn't fight for their children, and are now standing in the way of a generation that wants to liberate themselves. It's government that is mobilizing them. So the right to protest is very clearly enshrined in their own constitution, the 1999 military constitution. But they are not interested in those rights. They're interested in limiting the rights of people who want to protest, or even asking them outright that they cannot protest. If you follow any of the people who are protesting against protests now, you will find police guarding them. They're engaging in marches. They're engaging in street demonstrations, and the police provides complete coverage for them. They are telling us yesterday when a group of civil society leaders met with the IG that they want to restrict us to 2 locations. They even went ahead to get a court order from the Lagos High Court in Igboshere saying that there are 2 locations for protests in Lagos. So, and why we're going to challenge that, because it's unconstitutional according to what you have read of their own constitution, we have also said, in the meantime, if that's the case, Lagos State government, the Lagos State TIB unit has written to the governor of Lagos to provide buses from over 10 locations that will bring people to the protest at 8 a.m. and return them back to their place of convergence at 6 p.m. If you can't do that, that means those people will have to converge in those places and start walking towards your designated places in Ojota and K2.
Right.
So what I'm trying to tell you is that their interest is not those things you read, the fine print of the Constitution. Their interest is to keep suppressing people, is to keep beating up the Nigerian people and also preventing them from crying out when they're in pain.
All right, Mr. Sowore, what are your expectations with regards to numbers? And do you also, feel that, Nigerians will truly come out from tomorrow and demand some of these things that you've, that stated in the end bad governance 15-point demands? Do you think that you would have a large number of people? Do you think that Nigerians are truly fed up and are really ready to demand a better Nigeria?
Well, there's no question about the fact that Nigerians are fed up. They're fed up with this system of oppression, system of incompetence, and a system that continues to denigrate them and strip them of their dignity. No question about it. And you have to give it to Nigerians that they're some of the most resilient people in the world. Otherwise, who takes this from anybody in the world? Not even primary school students who take that from principals or their head teachers anymore these days. So, but having said that, I should tell you that the numbers are very, very important. And I can tell you that a lot of people are going to protest tomorrow. Either they are going to do that offline or online, whether they do that at home or outside of their homes. I cannot tell you how many people will come out until tomorrow comes. And tomorrow is the beginning of a series of actions to resist the government. So it starts tomorrow, but it doesn't end tomorrow until we win.
All right. I also want to ask, this protest and its demands, does it take the shape of what you would have imagined for revolution now? Is this maybe in some measure what you have been advocating for? And also, do you have fears that there might be a semblance of what happened or a repeat of what happened at the 2020 NSAS protests?
So everything you saw in our demands this time around were also demanded in 2019, except for releasing Nnamdi Kanu. But in 2019, we sought for the release of ex-Zakizaki, the leader of Shiites, who had been in detention for years at that point. Ex-Zakizaki has now been released, and I am not aware that he has killed even a rat or any of his members. They have been engaging also in peaceful protests, even though government keeps shooting at them when engaging in these peaceful protests since he was released. But in 2019, we had 10 demands. Now we have 15, and because some of them in 2019 has been fulfilled, and there's some more needed to be fulfilled this time around. That's why the numbers increase. As a matter of fact, Nigerians ought to have 64 demands on the government. That's one demand per year since independence. But listen, we have done what is needed to serve a notice on these people that Nigerians are fed up, as we keep discussing. We expect that they will respect themselves enough, and I mean this seriously, not to try what they tried in 2020. If they do, they would be immediately faced with a different society, immediately. They will be immediately faced with different level of resistance, because Every culture of oppression breeds a different level of resistance. That much I can tell you. And this is not a threat. It is the promise of the Nigerian people that they cannot continue to be subjugated by governments that are supposed to be civilian in nature, but who continue to act uh, to be disrespectful of their rights and existence. Nobody, and I mean nobody, will accept the kind of thing they did in 2020, from which they themselves have not recovered anyways.
All right. Also, I have repeatedly said, that it has been very important in the last couple of weeks since the conversations about the protest started, that it's important that President Bola Tinubu addresses the nation, finds a way to calm the nerves of Nigerians and assures Nigerians that they're in safe hands. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow morning in the start of the protest, do you think that the president, has words that he maybe should use if he decides to address the people today that would maybe change the mind of Nigerians against protesting tomorrow?
I think our demands are clear. Our demands are non-negotiable. If he likes, he can go and borrow, how to talk from somewhere else. Nobody will be fooled by it. We know the characteristics of those who are in government. As a matter of fact, it is important to say to Nigerians, and this is why they should appreciate standing up, that some of the government has been behaving as if they're here to do some things, because suddenly NNPC is openly recruiting. I know that if the protests are over, they'll go back to their usual ways. The army has recruited people. Phone companies or telcos that were disconnecting numbers had to restore them immediately when they saw that people were really upset. They have made available money for some kind of loan for young people. In fact, it was when these protests began that they hurriedly called the Nigerian Labour Congress to come for a meeting to approve their 70,000 naira. Up until then, nothing was done. They had been negotiating back and forth. I remember attending a protest in Abuja in March 2024 with the Nigerian Labour Congress. And they were complaining that they were just lying to them. But the moment this protest was announced, it came, called them to a meeting. They signed a new minimum wage. They approved a minimum wage, signed it into law. But sadly, it was too late. It was too little, too late. So there's no amount of sugarcoating that will make Nigerians forget that this government didn't come to serve them. And they will have to, and in doing so, they have to meet the conditions set by the Nigerian people. So nobody is going to be fooled if by tomorrow you see a contrite president trying to act as if he believes in you.
Right.
We'll know that that's as entered the era of Yahoo.
And yes, there are different points on the agenda that the Nigerians are asking for, which is why they're heading to the protests. But the main trigger, we would think, would be the fact that the economy, as many would say, hasn't been the best in the past few months and years. And people are hungry. People are hungry. Inflation is at an all-time high. Now, we often would hear that regardless of who came into power, regardless of which presidential candidate came into power, that the chances are high that we will still have landed where we are. Do you agree or not?
Not true, not true. You have someone in front of you talking to you who never proposed to remove fuel subsidy, because I know it will cause untold hardship, or the floating of the naira. I spoke extensively about it in 2022 and 2023. And so many of the decisions they are taking now, like building a $21 billion naira mansion for the vice president, buying $100 million jet for the president, the amount of corruption that has happened, awarding 16 trillion naira project without bidding and transparency to a friend of the president in the name of the Coastal Highway. So many of the malfeasance of this government, since there's no serious precedent that should have done it. But I'll tell you this: what is driving the Bola Tinubu's regime impunity is what they got away with in Lagos. This is how they started in Lagos, like a joke, you know. They were calm, they started, and then they took over Lagos. And they started telling people that they're the ones who built Lagos, even though they just practically just converted Lagos to their private estate. So it is that impunity that took them to Abuja. The impunity that what is everybody going to do to us? They're just shrugging their shoulders at you. And but now they woke up one day and discovered that, oh my goodness, these people are not joking.
Okay. Well, we'll see how things turn out tomorrow. Like you've said, you expect that there would be a large turnout of Nigerians willing to protest and make these demands. Would also like to see what the response of the current Nigerian government is in different parts of the country, here in Lagos, in the FCT, and in other states. Omoyele Sowore, thank you very much for joining us, and of course, follow up with these issues and have you join us again.
Thank you so much for having me, and have a new day tomorrow.